Hollywood sold them as flawless icons. But what if the carefully crafted studio image hid lives far more scandalous than audiences ever imagined? Behind the glamorous premieres and dazzling magazine covers, whispers of secret affairs, obsessive romances, and dangerously intense relationships circulated through studio corridors and private parties. Tonight, we're uncovering 15 Golden Age actresses whose hidden appetites shocked even Hollywood insiders. And one of these stars became so infamous that studios quietly worked to bury the rumors forever. Dolores del Rio, flying down to Rio, 1933. Long before Hollywood began carefully controlling star images, Dolores del Rio already carried a reputation that fascinated gossip columnists. Elegant, intelligent, and widely admired in both American and Mexican film circles, she was also surrounded by rumors of complicated romantic relationships that stretched across continents. Her breakthrough Hollywood success arrived with the musical adventure Flying Down to Rio in 1933. A film remembered today for introducing audiences to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. But behind the dazzling dance sequences and glamorous costumes, Del Rio's private life often attracted almost as much attention as her performances. Writers, artists, and filmmakers moved through her social circle constantly. Many were captivated not only by her beauty, but by her confidence and independence in an era when actresses were expected to appear carefully controlled by studio publicity departments. Studio executives tolerated the whispers because she remained box office valuable. Yet the rumors never completely disappeared, becoming part of the mysterious aura that followed her career for decades. One Paulette Goddard, Modern Times in 1936. Paulette Goddard's rise in Hollywood happened quickly, and almost immediately her private life began attracting intense curiosity from journalists and studio insiders. Her performance opposite Charlie Chaplin in Modern Times in 1936 helped establish her as one of the era's most recognizable faces. The film's success elevated her status dramatically, but it also placed her under the microscope of Hollywood gossip culture. Goddard moved comfortably among actors, writers, and influential producers, forming friendships and romances that frequently blurred together in the stories told by insiders years later. In an industry where image mattered almost as much as talent, her independence made studio publicists nervous. Unlike many actresses of the era, she refused to appear apologetic about her relationships or social life. Instead, she cultivated an image of confidence and personal freedom that fascinated fans while quietly unsettling studio executives. Over time, the rumors grew larger than the facts, creating a reputation that followed her through several major films and marriages. Whether exaggerated or not, the whispers ensured that Paulette Goddard remained one of old Hollywood's most talked-about personalities. Peggy Hopkins Joyce, The Skyrocket, 1926. Peggy Hopkins Joyce was already famous long before most audiences saw her on a movie screen. By the time she appeared in the film The Skyrocket in 1926, she had built a reputation as one of the most talked-about social figures of the era. Joyce moved effortlessly through wealthy social circles, and newspapers eagerly documented her marriages, romances, and extravagant lifestyle. Her relationships often involved powerful businessmen and influential figures, which only increased public fascination. When Hollywood studios began casting her in films, they knew her notoriety would attract attention. The publicity machine understood that audiences were as curious about her personal life as they were about her acting ability. Stories about Joyce's romantic adventures spread widely in newspapers and gossip columns, creating an image of a woman whose social life was as dramatic as any film storyline. For studio executives, the attention was both valuable and dangerous. Controversy could sell tickets, but too much scandal risked damaging carefully managed star reputations. In Joyce's case, however, the rumors only strengthened her legend. She became a symbol of the glamorous and unpredictable lifestyle that many outsiders imagined existed behind Hollywood's polished facade. Carole Landis, 1 million BC or 1940. Carole Landis achieved major recognition after appearing in the adventure film 1 million BC in 1940. The movie's promotional campaign focused heavily on spectacle and fantasy, but behind the scenes, Landis was already becoming a familiar name in Hollywood gossip columns. Friends described her as passionate and deeply emotional in her relationships. Over time, those intense romances became the subject of constant speculation among journalists and studio insiders. Hollywood during the 1940s operated on a delicate balance. Studios worked tirelessly to maintain the illusion that their stars lived perfect lives, while reporters searched for any hint of scandal that might attract readers. Landis often found herself caught between those two worlds. She formed connections with actors, producers, and other influential figures, many of which became widely discussed in Hollywood social circles. Some stories were likely exaggerated, yet the persistence of the rumors created an image of a star whose personal life was filled with dramatic emotional highs and lows. Despite the gossip, audiences remained captivated by her screen presence. That contrast between public glamour and whispered controversy became a recurring theme throughout her career. Gloria Grahame, The Big Heat, 1953. Gloria Grahame possessed a screen presence that felt both mysterious and unpredictable. When she appeared in the crime drama The Big Heat in 1953, audiences immediately recognized her ability to bring complex emotional layers to a character. Off the screen, however, her personal life often drew even more attention than her performances. Hollywood insiders frequently described Grahame as fiercely independent, someone unwilling to follow the traditional expectations placed upon actresses during the studio era. That independence extended to her relationships, which sometimes unfolded in ways that shocked even industry veterans. Rumors about her romantic life circulated widely through studio corridors and private gatherings. Friends and critics alike observed that she pursued relationships based on emotion rather than reputation or public perception. One particular personal scandal later became one of the most discussed stories in classic Hollywood biographies. The controversy surrounding it created headlines that overshadowed her professional achievements for a time. Yet Grahame continued working, appearing in films that demonstrated her remarkable acting ability. The contrast between her controlled, nuanced screen performances and the chaotic stories surrounding her private life only added to the intrigue. In many ways, Gloria Grahame represented a side of Hollywood that studios struggled to control, one where personal freedom occasionally collided with carefully manufactured star images. Barbara Payton, Bride of the Gorilla, 1951. By the early 1950s, Barbara Payton seemed poised for a promising Hollywood career. Studios believed she had the beauty, confidence, and screen presence necessary to become a major star. When she appeared in the jungle thriller Bride of the Gorilla in 1951, the film helped place her firmly on Hollywood's radar. But Payton's career soon became overshadowed by one of the most chaotic personal lives in classic Hollywood history. She moved quickly through intense romantic relationships with actors, producers, and public figures. Friends later described her social life as a whirlwind of parties, emotional attachments, and dramatic breakups. One particularly explosive scandal involved two actors who reportedly fought publicly over her, turning what might have remained private gossip into front-page entertainment news. The incident shocked studios that were already nervous about controlling their stars' public reputations. In the tightly managed studio system, scandals like this were considered dangerous. Executives worried that controversy might damage box office appeal. Yet the publicity only increased curiosity about Payton. Fans followed the headlines as closely as they followed her films. Unfortunately, the attention came at a cost. As rumors and scandals multiplied, studios became hesitant to cast her in major productions. Opportunities began disappearing. Within only a few years, a career that once looked destined for stardom collapsed under the weight of relentless gossip, making Barbara Payton one of Hollywood's most tragic, cautionary stories. Jayne Mansfield, The Girl Can't Help It, 1956. When Jayne Mansfield arrived in Hollywood, she understood exactly how the publicity machine worked, and she knew how to use it. Her breakout performance in the musical comedy The Girl Can't Help It in 1956 introduced audiences to a star who blended humor, glamour, and deliberate provocation. Mansfield quickly became one of the most recognizable personalities of the decade, but her carefully crafted image extended far beyond the movie screen. Mansfield frequently appeared at parties, premieres, and publicity events where photographers eagerly captured every moment. Her playful personality and willingness to embrace scandalous headlines kept journalists constantly interested. Over time, rumors about her romantic life grew increasingly dramatic. Hollywood insiders often described a long list of admirers that included actors, producers, musicians, and wealthy businessmen. Some stories were likely exaggerated by the publicity culture of the era. Yet Mansfield rarely tried to silence the rumors. In many ways, she understood that controversy could keep her name circulating through newspapers and magazines. This strategy helped maintain her visibility in an industry where new stars appeared constantly. At the same time, it created a reputation that followed her everywhere. Fans admired her confidence, while critics sometimes questioned whether the headlines overshadowed her acting abilities. Regardless of opinion, Jayne Mansfield became one of the most talked-about personalities of 1950s Hollywood, an actress whose public image blended glamour, humor, and an almost unstoppable appetite for attention. Lana Turner, The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946. Few Hollywood stars lived lives as dramatic away from the camera as Lana Turner. Her performance in the film noir classic The Postman Always Rings Twice in 1946 solidified her reputation as one of the most captivating actresses of the era. Audiences were drawn to her striking presence and emotional intensity on screen, but off-screen, Turner's personal life often unfolded with even greater drama. She experienced multiple marriages, each attracting intense media attention. Gossip columnists followed her romantic relationships closely, reporting every new development as if it were part of an unfolding film script. Hollywood insiders described her social life as fast-moving and emotionally intense. Admirers surrounded her constantly, from fellow actors to influential businessmen and studio executives. Yet the most shocking moment in her personal history came during a scandal that dominated newspaper headlines across the country. A violent incident involving one of her partners triggered a public trial that exposed details of Turner's private life to millions of readers. The case became one of the most sensational celebrity stories of the 1940s. Despite the controversy, Turner continued working and maintained a successful career for many years afterward. Her ability to survive public scandal while remaining a major star fascinated both audiences and historians. Today, Lana Turner's legacy reflects both sides of old Hollywood, the glamorous illusion studios created, and the turbulent reality that sometimes unfolded behind it. Marilyn Monroe, The 7-Year Itch, 1955. Few names in Hollywood history carry as much mystery as Marilyn Monroe. When she appeared in the romantic comedy The 7-Year Itch in 1955, one unforgettable moment, her white dress billowing above a subway grate, became one of the most famous images in cinema history. But Monroe's private life was far more complicated than the playful characters she portrayed on screen. Behind the glamour, she struggled with loneliness, intense emotional relationships, and constant scrutiny from the press. Hollywood insiders frequently whispered about secret romances with powerful men in entertainment, politics, and business. These rumors circulated quietly through industry circles long before they reached the public. Part of Monroe's mystique came from the way studios tried to control her image. Publicists carefully crafted a persona of innocence and charm while attempting to keep more controversial stories out of newspapers. Yet the secrecy often created even greater curiosity. Biographers later uncovered a network of complicated relationships that suggested Monroe's emotional life was far more turbulent than audiences ever imagined. Despite the whispers and speculation, Monroe remained one of the most beloved stars of the 20th century. Her vulnerability on screen resonated deeply with viewers, and perhaps that is why the fascination continues today. Behind the iconic photographs and timeless performances remains a lingering question. How much of Marilyn Monroe's true story was hidden behind Hollywood's carefully constructed illusion? Ava Gardner, The Killers, 1946. Ava Gardner's arrival in Hollywood was almost accidental. Discovered through a photograph displayed in a New York studio window, she quickly caught the attention of MGM scouts. Within only a few years, she transformed from an unknown newcomer into one of the most magnetic actresses in the industry. Her breakthrough role in the noir thriller The Killers in 1946 introduced audiences to a presence that felt both dangerous and irresistible. Gardner's character radiated mystery, and that same aura seemed to follow her beyond the screen. Hollywood insiders often described her social life as explosive. Parties stretched late into the night, and powerful figures from across the entertainment world appeared constantly in her orbit. Actors, musicians, and wealthy businessmen all competed for her attention. Her most famous relationship came through her turbulent marriage to singer and actor Frank Sinatra. Their romance unfolded like a dramatic film plot, filled with passionate reunions, arguments, and intense emotional highs and lows. Newspapers followed the relationship obsessively, Gossip columnists reported every development, turning the couple into one of the most talked-about celebrity pairings of the era. Yet Gardner refused to conform to Hollywood's expectations of quiet, carefully controlled behavior. She spoke openly, lived boldly, and pursued relationships according to her own desires. That independence fascinated audiences while frustrating studio executives who preferred predictable stars. In the end, Ava Gardner became a symbol of something Hollywood rarely allowed its actresses to show publicly: a life lived with unapologetic passion. Hedy Lamarr, Samson and Delilah, 1949. To millions of moviegoers during the 1940s, Hedy Lamarr represented the ultimate image of cinematic beauty. Her role in the biblical epic Samson and Delilah in 1949 showcased that reputation perfectly. Draped in elaborate costumes and surrounded by massive sets, Lamarr embodied the mysterious allure that studios believed audiences craved. But behind the camera, her life was far more complicated than the glamorous characters she portrayed. Born in Vienna, Lamarr had already experienced scandal before arriving in Hollywood. Her early European marriage ended dramatically, followed by a daring escape that became the subject of countless retellings. Once in America, she quickly became one of the most desired women in the film industry. Directors admired her presence. Producers valued her box office appeal, and wealthy admirers often sought invitations into her social circle. Over time, rumors began circulating through Hollywood parties about Lamarr's complicated romantic life. Several marriages, numerous relationships, and a reputation for intense emotional connections became frequent topics of gossip columns. Yet focusing only on her romantic reputation overlooks something remarkable. Away from film sets, Lamarr spent hours experimenting with technical ideas. During the Second World War, she even helped develop an early form of frequency-hopping communication technology intended to prevent radio-controlled torpedoes from being jammed. Decades later, that same concept would influence the wireless technologies used in modern communication systems. This contrast made Hedy Lamarr unique in Hollywood history. While gossip writers obsessed over her relationships, one of the most famous actresses in the world was quietly contributing ideas that would shape the technological future. Rita Hayworth, Gilda, 1946. When Rita Hayworth appeared on screen in the film noir classic Gilda in 1946, audiences witnessed a performance that instantly became legendary. Her entrance in the film, tossing her hair back while introducing herself with a confident smile, created one of the most iconic moments in Hollywood history. For many viewers, Hayworth represented the ultimate glamorous star. But the real woman behind that image lived a life filled with emotional complexity. Hayworth experienced several highly publicized marriages, including a relationship with Prince Ali Khan, a member of one of the world's wealthiest royal families. Their romance fascinated international media, transforming the actress into a global celebrity. Hollywood insiders often described her as deeply romantic, someone who pursued relationships with intense emotion. Unfortunately, that vulnerability sometimes collided with the pressures of fame. Studio executives attempted to maintain the illusion that Hayworth's life matched the elegant characters she played on screen. Yet the reality was far more turbulent. Friends later revealed that she struggled with the constant attention and expectations placed upon her. Despite these challenges, Hayworth continued delivering memorable performances that kept audiences captivated throughout the 1940s and 50s. Her story reveals one of the most striking contradictions in old Hollywood. The woman widely known as the world's ultimate love goddess often felt trapped inside an image created by others, an image that rarely reflected the complicated truth behind the spotlight. Mae West, She Done Him Wrong, 1933. Long before Hollywood embraced bold female characters, Mae West was already shocking audiences with her fearless confidence. Her breakout film, She Done Him Wrong, in 1933, became one of the biggest hits of the decade. Audiences loved her quick wit, provocative humor, and unmistakable self-assurance. West wrote much of her own material, filling scripts with double meanings and sly jokes that slipped past censorship boards while leaving audiences laughing. But her reputation for scandal did not begin in Hollywood. Years earlier on Broadway, several of her stage productions had already attracted controversy for their suggestive themes. At one point, she was even arrested after authorities declared one of her plays immoral. Instead of damaging her career, the scandal only made her more famous. By the time West arrived in Hollywood, studios understood exactly what they were getting. A performer who refused to pretend she was anything other than confident, Outspoken and unapologetically bold, her personal life attracted constant curiosity. Admirers and romantic partners appeared frequently in stories told by friends and colleagues. Yet West rarely allowed gossip to control her narrative. Instead, she turned the rumors into part of her brand. Her famous one-liners often hinted playfully at the very scandals journalists loved to discuss. In a Hollywood system that tried to present actresses as sweet and modest, Mae West stood out as something completely different. A woman who openly controlled her own image and career. That bold attitude helped her become one of the most unforgettable personalities of the Golden Age. Joan Crawford, Mildred Pierce, 1945. Joan Crawford built her career through relentless determination. Her Academy Award-winning performance in Mildred Pierce in 1945 proved she could command a film with extraordinary intensity. The role portrayed a fiercely ambitious woman willing to sacrifice everything for success, an image that often mirrored Crawford's own reputation in Hollywood. From the beginning of her career, Crawford understood that survival in the studio system required absolute dedication. She attended endless publicity events, maintained strict discipline on film sets, and carefully cultivated relationships with influential figures in the industry. But behind the scenes, her personal life generated a constant stream of rumors. Crawford moved through Hollywood's most powerful social circles, forming friendships and romantic connections with actors, producers, and studio executives. Some of these relationships became widely discussed among insiders, contributing to the perception that Crawford's private life was just as intense as her performances. Her personality added to the intrigue. Friends described her as fiercely competitive and emotionally driven, someone who pursued both career success and personal relationships with extraordinary energy. At the same time, Crawford remained deeply aware of how public perception could influence her career. She worked tirelessly to maintain control over her image, carefully balancing scandalous rumors with calculated publicity appearances. That strategy helped her remain one of the most powerful actresses in Hollywood for decades. Even today, Joan Crawford's legacy remains complex, part brilliant performer, part fiercely ambitious survivor of an industry that often demanded perfection while quietly thriving on scandal. Tallulah Bankhead, Lifeboat, 1944. Few figures in classic Hollywood possessed a personality as legendary as Tallulah Bankhead. Born into a prominent political family in Alabama, Bankhead grew up surrounded by influence and privilege. Yet instead of pursuing a quiet life within high society, she chose the unpredictable world of acting. Her performance in Alfred Hitchcock's wartime drama Lifeboat in 1944 demonstrated her remarkable ability to command attention on screen. Confined almost entirely to a small boat with a handful of other characters, Bankhead's performance delivered charisma, wit, and unpredictability. But her off-screen reputation often overshadowed even her impressive acting career. Bankhead was famous for living without restraint. Hollywood parties, Broadway gatherings, and private social clubs frequently buzzed with stories about her wild sense of humor, fearless personality, and unapologetically extravagant lifestyle. Friends described evenings that stretched until sunrise, filled with conversation, laughter, and a rotating cast of fascinating guests. Unlike many actresses who relied on carefully managed publicity, Bankhead rarely tried to hide anything about her personal life. In fact, she often joked openly about the very rumors that surrounded her. This honesty both shocked and fascinated audiences. During an era when studios worked tirelessly to present actresses as elegant and morally flawless, Bankhead embraced a completely different approach. She celebrated freedom, indulgence, and individuality. That attitude made her one of the most unpredictable personalities in entertainment history. Directors admired her talent, writers adored her wit, and gossip columnists could barely keep up with the stories that followed her from one social event to the next. Yet beneath the wild reputation was a performer of remarkable intelligence and skill. Tallulah Bankhead understood something many of her contemporaries did not. In Hollywood, mystery and personality could be just as powerful as beauty or acting ability. And by embracing her larger-than-life reputation, she ensured that her name would remain one of the most unforgettable legends of the Golden Age. The Golden Age of Hollywood sold audiences a dream: perfect stars, flawless romances, and glamorous lives that seemed almost untouchable. But behind the studio publicity photos and carefully written magazine interviews, reality was often far more complicated. Passion, scandal, and secret relationships moved quietly through Hollywood's private parties and hidden corridors. These stories remind us that the legends of classic cinema were not just icons on a screen, they were human beings living intensely under the brightest spotlight in the world.